Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at @It'sJessino. I know I'm late. I'm sorry, you guys, but the show I was on just ran a little bit too long, but don't worry. This show is going to be nice and long. I'm going to give you guys like a chance to really get into the chat box, and I'll answer as many questions as possible. I know you guys are probably dying to talk about the Maddison news that just dropped. The bell has spoken. We are going to go in for James Maddison, and it's looking decent. Like there might be an opportunity for us to actually bring him to the club. But first, before we get into that, I do want to get through the agenda that I already had planned. We're going to talk about Tavares. He is now an Arsenal player officially. He signed for Arsenal, and he was unveiled today. And I really did enjoy like his video and, you know, the things that he talked about in terms of what swayed him into coming to Arsenal and those types of things. So we'll talk about him signing, and I'll get your guys' opinions on how you feel about this signing. I'm also going to do my reaction to the all or nothing for Arsenal. Yeah, that was a shocker. I'm always late to the party because you guys know I'm like 8 hours behind. And I was in my little group chat with Harry and George and Souls, and they had already reacted to it like by the time I woke up, you know. But I do want to give my reaction and just kind of talk to you guys about it and see what you guys think. It's also kind of coming out, and you know, the midfield option is becoming a little bit more clear. I'm thinking it's Ruben Neves. We'll have more concrete links to him now. So we'll talk about what he can add to Arsenal, kind of talk about what his strengths and weaknesses are, get your thoughts on if you think he's the right midfielder to come in. And I also want to show you guys a really cool graphic that shows the strengths and how the midfield can look next season with certain players being involved in it and those types of things, you know. So, you know, I love my stats, I love my charts, I love all those types of things. So there's already about 40 of you guys watching right now, which is amazing. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. I apologize for being late. Please don't hate me. Okay, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat box before we go ahead and get started. I know you guys, I'm so sorry. Let's see, what are you guys saying? Newman says the AFC Bell knows nothing. Josh says, yeah, literally last year. Okay, you guys are like saying all these different things. Okay, yeah, you guys are having conversations amongst each other, which is perfectly fine, like no problems. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So let me share my screen. Boom. Okay, so welcome, Nuno. Tavares is now an Arsenal player. He came from Benfica. We already know that. He's 21 years old, developed through the Benfica youth system. And over the past 2 seasons, he's been in the Portugal under-21 side as predominantly a left-sided defender, and he made 25 appearances for Benfica. Edu said Nuno is a very talented player who was wanted by a number of clubs across Europe. He will provide strong backup in the left-back position. We look forward to him growing and developing with us and becoming an important member of the first team squad. Mikel Arteta says, we welcome Nuno to the club. He is a young player with great promise who has developed well with Benfica in recent seasons and has also shown his quality by being a part of the Portugal under-21s. Nuno's arrival will give the squad extra strength and options in defense, particularly with energy on the left-hand side of the pitch. We look forward to Nuno's arrival, his integration into the Arsenal family, and playing in front of our fantastic supporters. And like I said, you guys, I really enjoyed his video, and they were showing him going through some of his like little testing and all that kind of stuff, and he spoke a lot about young players, and Edu and Arteta talking to him about the project. And I think we're seeing kind of like a change in the way that we are recruiting. I know a lot of Arsenal fans don't really see anything different with what we're doing, but you guys know that probably a year ago, if this had been a player that we were looking for, we were looking to recruit as a left back cover, we probably would have taken the easy way out and gotten a Bertrand or a Patrick Van Arnholt, somebody who, although may have some Premier League experience, is a little bit older at the end of their career and is probably looking for a solid move that's going to solidify them financially. And we've done that before. We've been there, done that. We've had Lichtsteiner and Debussys, Socrateses, Cedrics. We've kind of been there, done that. And so seeing that Arsenal has kind of moved away from getting that kind of like taking that easy way out and actually tried to recruit somebody who would give us not really a similar profile, but would give us the opportunity to maintain our formation and the way that we play with a younger player that can also be used to, sell for a fee later on, I think just shows a difference in the way that we're thinking about our recruitment, which I think is really important because we've been quite critical of the way Arsenal have recruited in the past maybe 10 years. And I think it's been valid criticism. So to see that we've taken a different route and done something a little bit different, to me bodes well for this administration, in their first like kind of full transfer window without the pandemic really being like at the forefront of our minds. So I like that. Tavares, to me, he strikes me as the type of player. He's not really similar to Tierney in profile, in my opinion. Like, I just think he's quick. He's still kind of raw, and Tierney is more of a push it past you and run and then smack the ball type of guy. Whereas Tavares likes to progress the ball from a dribbling standpoint. He's a very good ball progressor in that way. And I think he has more skill and a more variety to his skills than Tierney does. That being said, it wouldn't be something where if we have to play Tavares, we have to play with a wing back, or we have to do something different with our formation. We could easily just slot him in as a left back and continue on if Tierney is no longer available or he's injured or we just want to rest him. So I like that. I like that a lot. And if you guys did watch his kind of like his unveiling video, one of the most like iconic moments, I'm not even going to lie, like I loved it, was when they asked him who in the Arsenal team you've been impressed by, and he said that the player that he's been most impressed by in terms of players that are a little bit younger is Smith Rowe, but he called him the Smith. And I thought that was just so funny. Like, now we have to call Emile Smith Rowe the Smith from now on. But he spoke about young players a lot. And I think we can see with the recruitment and the players that we're reliably linked to, plus the young core that we have and the players that are being re-signed like to new deals, this Arsenal team is going to be a young team. It's going to be a team full of young, promising players, which hopefully will breed, some good sales in the future. I know that we don't like to think about it, having to sell some of our young players, but for a self-sustaining model, which I'm sure the Cronkies will want to get back to, after this season, we will need to take some of these young players and being able to almost flip them for profit. So I like the kind of where we're going. I know that left back cover is not exciting because it's not a first, a starting player or whatever. And we know that if Tierney's fit, he's going to start. But knowing kind of how our season unraveled last season with Tierney getting injured and us having to essentially weaken our midfield in order to survive, and Granit Xhaka being a kind of like a bone of contention between the fan base. It was kind of like, well, is it worth weakening our midfield to get this guy at left back? Could we not just play Cedric? Now we don't have to have those moments of, do we have to shift things around in order to keep playing? Like, we can easily just put him in that spot. And so I think this is possibly one of the most important signings to get done in this window. It may not be exciting. He may not be world class. He's still raw. I definitely don't think that he's the finished article, but ultimately the way the deal is structured, 6 million, 21 years old, can easily slot in for Tierney, good upside player, and really addressing like a position that we struggled with last season. I think that this is a home run for Arsenal. So hold on, you guys. I'm just making sure that I hit all my points. Exactly. So I think that this is a home run for this administration. So what I want you guys to do really quick for me is just rank this signing on a scale of 1 to 10 and tell me why in the chat box. I want to gauge where you guys are with this. If you know a little bit more about Nuno than maybe I do, let me know what you think about him as a player. Do you think that this is a good signing? Are you just ultimately underwhelmed, or do you think that this is a home run for me? For me, I would rank this probably an 8 out of 10. I do think that it's not a 10 out of 10 because I don't think he's the finished article. I'm not under any illusion that from what I've seen from a compilations and all that I think that I don't think he's like a world-class guy. Like, you know what I mean? But besides that, I think all the elements really fit. So let me know in the chat box on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you rank this signing as? And tell me why, if you can. And also, there's a lot of conflicting reports kind of on his attitude. And so I take that into consideration as well. But if you guys have a chance, I suggest, and I put it in the description box too, when you leave here, if you want to learn more about Nuno Tavares from a more neutral perspective, a more balanced perspective, I've linked a video from Latte Firm, which is FK's YouTube channel. And he talks to, I think his name is Zach Lowry, and they talk about Nuno Tavares from a very balanced perspective, not from any sort of bias, not a Benfica. I think he is a Benfica fan, but it's not like I hate him because he said something about Grimaldo. You know what I mean? Like, he talks about the pluses, the pros and the cons and all those things. So it gives you kind of a good idea of what kind of player we're getting. Okay. So let's see what you guys are saying. Make sure that you guys are giving me your rankings. Mr. Austin says 11. Dupe 6 out of 7. Dupe T says 6 out of 7. Don Giovanni says it's still exciting. Any sign of management making good long-term decisions is great improvement. I agree. DB says 7. Young. We're looking towards the future. He has to develop his defending, but Arteta will coach him. Josh says 7 or 8. Xander says can't be as bad as Andre Santos equals 7. Mike Dubious says 7. More athleticism is always a plus. One of his main, his really good, the main parts of his profile that I do like is his athleticism. He's quite quick. He's not one of those that's like really fast out of the gate, but he gains speed and he's bigger. He's like 6'1". So he doesn't get knocked off the ball easy. And once he gets going, he's very hard to stop. And it's an interesting profile for a left back. I think left backs are mostly quite small, more like Tierney, like 6'9", 6'8", quick, sprinty types. But he's a little bit different. So it's going to be interesting to see how he develops. Dublin Gooner says 8 for me too. If only it means I never have to see Kolasinac, Xhaka, or Cedric at left back again. Newman says 6. Young cover is good, but no doubt make mistakes. I mean, the reality is every player makes mistakes, but I'm more interested in a young player that could potentially get better making mistakes than Kolasinac, who's never going to get better and is killing our wage bill, making the same mistakes over and over and over again. Chasman says he's a 7. Right now, I'm kind of worried about him in defense. Desmond says 6.5. He's a backup left back. Shamoy says 8. Young, quick, could rise in value and finally get a decent-ish left back option. That's where I kind of am, you guys. I think we're under no illusions here that he's as good as Tierney. He's going to like hit the ground running. I think this is something that we have to see how he kind of progresses. Maybe he progresses quite well and his value increases and he's, we're in a year we're like, wow, that was a really good signing. Or maybe in 2 years we're like, it hasn't quite worked out, but we only spent 6 million on him. So even if we sell him for 6 million, we haven't really lost out on anything. And as long as he can step in for Tierney when we need him to and do a job, I'm good. But there are opportunities for growth there. There are opportunities for his value to increase. And those are things that you just don't get with a Bertrand or a Van Arnholt. And he's also not going to be killing our wage bill. So I like that. I like it a lot. So he's now an Arsenal player. That's the first one down. I know we're quite anxious to move on from this one because it's not like we didn't know that this was coming, but we're ready for the next signing to come in through the door and to see what happens. I think we're pretty sure it's going to be Sambi Lokonga, who is also somebody that I'm quite excited about. I think Lokonga is more exciting than Tavares because I think he actually has a chance to really break into that starting lineup if he really pushes. So we'll see. I'm sure that will get announced like next week. So let's talk about all or nothing. Let's talk about that for a second. So that news broke yesterday. And of course, again, like I said, you guys, I'm super late. I wake up later than you guys, but I was like shocked when I saw the news. I was like, wow, we're actually going to get one of these. And I've really enjoyed those documentaries over the last year or so when they've come out. I actually really enjoy the Manchester City one and the Brazil one. Of course, the Tottenham one wasn't like that exciting, but it was kind of funny to laugh at them, like, to be honest. So my initial reaction, to this is, okay, like, I'm fine with this. Like, I don't really understand why people are so upset. I know a lot of people feel like that means that we've sold out, that, we're just doing it for a check. But last time you guys, I think the last time I checked, we're pretty freaking broke, so we do need ways to make a little bit of money. And I don't think it's just because of the 10 million that we're supposedly going to get. I think it also has something to do with the fact that we're trying to increase our visibility amongst the younger fan base, because quite frankly, I don't think Arsenal is that popular of a team to follow at the moment because we're not that good. So Arsenal is a business, and I know that people don't like to hear it, but we've been a business for a while. We've been a business since the moment we came to the Emirates. That's when it became more important to be a brand than an actual football institution. So from a branding standpoint, this is something that I fully expect Arsenal to take advantage of. And I do think it could go wildly wrong if we have a bad season, but I do think it'll be interesting to see how things work behind the scenes. Obviously, it'll be zhuzhed up. I don't think we'll be seeing like the raw, like, of what it's going to be. But I personally like Arsenal content. So the more I can get, the better. I would love to see the boys train behind the scenes, what they say like to each other before games. I'm interested to see those kinds of things. So I'm not really that worried about it, but there has been quite a negative reaction to it from some fans. I think it's more like the older fans that just feel like Arsenal should not be involved in any sort of reality TV. That's what they think it is. I don't really feel that way about it. And then there's other fans that are afraid that we might shit the bed and look really stupid. And there's also the possibility of that. But ultimately for me, I think it's interesting, and I think it'll be cool to watch them behind the scenes and see what happens. I mean, if we lose all the games, then we lose all the games, but we'll get there. We'll discuss that when we get there. I don't want to, project that we're going to lose every single game and then be upset about this whole documentary because I'm anticipating us being horrible next season, which I don't actually predict that. So The Athletic basically said that Arsenal will be subject of Amazon Prime's video Video's next edition of their All or Nothing documentary series. The behind the scenes show has previously covered a number of Premier League sides. Now an edition focused around Arsenal will premiere on Amazon Prime Video in 2022. So they'll basically chronicle all of next season, and they're probably starting to shoot now. I've heard that they're going to be there for preseason in Orlando. So maybe I'll get on the documentary. Just kidding, but maybe, you never know. So Arsenal. So Amazon have run a documentary series on Manchester City and Tottenham, and they've also featured Leeds United, Crystal Palace, and Borussia Dortmund. Arsenal's media and communications director, Mark Ganella, said, "We are looking forward to giving our fans around the world," which I think is that's a key note to take out. Fans around the world, trying to grow the Arsenal fan base more worldwide. We know that Arsenal, especially with the whole ESL thing, that Arsenal are quite focused on fans outside of England. They want to be a global brand, and being in bed with Amazon will give them that brandability outside of England and English fans that are Arsenal fans, because that's what they've been their entire lives, right? We have one of the biggest global followings in the game, and one consistent thing we hear from fans is their desire to see more about what happens behind closed doors at the club. Dan Grabiner, head of UK Originals, Amazon Studios, blah, 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 says Arsenal is a historic club going through a fascinating period, and we can't wait to take viewers behind the scenes on the journey of this crucial season. So yeah, again, this can go good or bad, depending on what we're like in the season. But, I think it's quite interesting that Adu has already been a part of an All or Nothing series. He was very, very visible in the one for Brazil. And obviously, Arteta was a part of the one for Manchester City. So both of them know the ropes. They know, how things work. So I'm sure they're on board with it. And we'll see how it goes, but I want to get your guys' take on it. Ultimately, I don't have a strong feeling about it. I'm not strongly against it or strongly for it. I like Arsenal content. I'm one of those global fans. I know they're talking to me. They're speaking my language. I want to see more behind the scenes. The more Arsenal content I can get, the better. But I can understand where the anxiety comes from people that are afraid that will look stupid, plus the fans that are like, isn't this like reality TV? Arsenal is a classy club. Why would they be involved with something like this? So you guys let me know, are you all in? Are you feeling like, yes, this is something I'm interested in? Or are you feeling nothing, like, no, I'm not interested in this? Let me know in the chat box what you think. Chasman says Arsenal fans can't accept change. I think there's some truth in that, that we want our Arsenal back. That's a phrase that we hear quite often, and that depends on what you think your Arsenal is. For me, my Arsenal is obviously a team that wins, but I also recognize that, quite frankly, the moment that we moved to the Emirates, we became more of a brand and it became more about entertainment than sport. We know that Arsenal is very in cahoots with the idea of football as a entertainment entity than a sports entity. Do you know what I mean? So that's not to say that we should accept it and be okay with being mediocre. But what I am saying is that if you're surprised that Arsenal would be involved in something like this, I think you have maybe been turning a blind eye to the changes that are coming from Arsenal. I think they really want to kind of get into they want to compete with the AFTVs, like, the fan channels, to kind of take some of that power back, to drive the narrative about Arsenal being a lot more positive. We're in this project. We have this great young coach, all these, we're in a fascinating period, and the only way to do that is to kind of chip away at the stronghold that the AFTVs and stuff have on the younger fan base, and to try to gather them into something a little bit more attractive to the younger eye. And that's what something like an All or Nothing would be. So I do agree with that. Dublin Gooner says the Man City one was fascinating and gave great insight to Pep's coaching. Hope this will do the same with Arteta and maybe blow up some of the myths around him. I mean, one of the biggest myths that I think we have to kind of address too is this whole thing that he hates young players. And I mean, nothing about what we're doing right now says Arteta hates young players. He just didn't rate Guendouzi. Let's just call it what it is. So I do kind of agree with that, Dublin Gooner. I would like to see, although I do think it will be a zhuzh version of what's actually going on behind the scenes. Arsenal is not going to let the camera see anything that they don't want them to see. But we'll get to see a little bit more about how Arteta is with the players, how the players interact with each other, what it's like for them after they lose a game, what it's like for them after they win a game. And hopefully we're talking about a season that's ultimately a positive one and we can get something from this. Like, I'm not really seeing it as something negative. Mike W says, just seeing Arteta's face on that poster makes me nervous. Sean says, for me as an overseas fan, I like the idea of being able to see a snippet of who does what's inside, does what inside of the club. Yeah, for sure. Abdallah says the Invincibles were cold, but they massively underachieved. In my opinion, the 98 double team was a better team. DB says, can't wait for Arteta's team talks and to learn the secret behind his hair. I hope we see like, you know, one of those just for men type of boxes behind him or something, because like that man dyes his hair, doesn't he? Like there's no way it's that black. No way. Newman says Arsenal FC will never rival the fan channels. They're stupid to think that they will. It's about driving the narrative. AFTV and like big fan channels, not just AFTV, but they drive the narrative around Arsenal. A lot of things that they say ends up being the echoing voice around the Arsenal, fan base. And if they feel like they can show a different version of what's being kind of spouted around, on the internet, then I do think that Arsenal feels like they can take a little bit of power back, because ultimately Arsenal is a closed door. We can't see what's happening behind. So when we get little pieces of information, you can misconstrue that and take context out and stuff like that and make your own conclusions. So it's not really about rivaling. It's about giving their version of a narrative that they're comfortable with and not allowing fan channels to just make their own conclusions without any sort of evidence, if that makes sense. Because a lot of what we say, even like for me, like I guess I would be considered a fan channel. A lot of what I say, even though I try to do my research and I try to make sure that I'm as balanced as I can possibly be, a lot of what I'm telling you guys is my opinion and conclusions that I'm making from little bits of information. And I don't think the club really likes that. I don't think they enjoy having no say really and how the fans think about Arsenal, because they can't actually show us documents. They can't actually have us behind the scenes seeing what they're doing. So if they can give us a glossy version, a nicely edited version of what's going on behind the scenes and kind of give their version of the truth, then they feel like they can take a little bit of power away from the fan channels, because younger fans listen to what fan channels are saying and take it as gospel. And I don't think the club really likes that, if I'm honest. 6,000,007 says, Jess, you're saying Arteta has got a weave. I'll be watching, but I know there'll be some cringe parts. No, I'm not saying he has a weave. I'm saying that he dyes his hair. Like I swear he does. And I want to know what kind of shellac he has going on there that's making it so slick. And like, he does a lot with his hair. And I think he lies to us when he says he hasn't dyed it. Like, come on. Yo-Yo says, all clubs deal with such issues. Result drives narratives. This is true. I do agree with that. So yeah. Don Giovanni says, this won't really be evidence to dispel any myths. It will be edited to make Arteta look good, regardless of what's actually happening. Exactly. That's exactly a narrative that they are comfortable with fans seeing. It's not really about like because again, if we're not good, you're not going to be able to really change things. But I do think they want a narrative to be out there that they feel comfortable with. But for me, I'm not really interested in narratives. What I want to see are the players behind the scenes and what they're doing. That's what I care about. I actually don't care about the fight between Arsenal, and their narrative versus what we think based on what fan channels are saying and all that kind of stuff. I want more Arsenal content, and I want to see what they're doing. Like, that's what I'm interested in. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's definitely mixed reviews. I don't think it'll change much about how people feel about the club unless we're winning. But again, I don't have strong feelings about it in terms of I'm dead against it or I'm dead for it. I'm interested to see how they are behind closed doors in terms of the players, not necessarily Arteta and stuff like that. I'm interested to see him too, but I also know, again, it'll be judged to feel a certain way. It's TV after all, right? S says, I always wanted us to have an all or nothing documentary. I'm happy. Yeah. DB says, I think Kroenke will make an appearance. No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. So definitely mixed reviews, but let's see. I mean, it's happening, so we'll see how it all unfolds, right? So now I want to talk about Ruben Neves. All my information is gone away. Okay, so yeah, we're going to talk about Ruben Neves. There's more information coming out that he's the midfield option. We've been waiting for it to become more clear over the last couple of days. Basically, what it feels like is the club is waiting to get closer to an agreement for Xhaka so that they can, because basically how it works, in my opinion, is that no club wants to be asked out, right? So Wolves will want to be close to getting a replacement for Ruben Neves, will want to be quite close to getting a replacement for Xhaka, and then all the dominoes fall in place once all the deals are kind of in a place where they know they're going to happen. Like, there's no chance that it'll be like they'll be gazumped by somebody, like, you know what I mean? So it seems like Wolves have identified Paulinho as the replacement for Ruben Neves. Then Ruben Neves will come to us and Xhaka will go to Roma. So that's kind of how that seems like it's working out. You guys, to be quite honest, since the kind of the news about Locatelli, I do think there's legs to it. Not that he was ever interested in us or we were ever close to getting him, but based on the profile of player, I started to maybe feel as though the club was going more towards that profile, meaning a better version of Xhaka versus somebody who would evolve the face of our midfield, meaning somebody like Bissouma. And I'll give you my thoughts on that in just a minute. But so basically what some of the reports are is Arsenal are already negotiating with Wolves to sign Ruben Neves. The Portuguese midfielder is contracted to Wolves into 2024, which is a reason why I feel like the price will be a lot higher, is because he's not that close to, he has some time left on his deal, right? And Bruno Lage will certainly not want to leave him behind. So it's natural that a large bid will be required. Mikel Arteta has been focusing on other Portuguese players as well. Much valued by European clubs, Renato Sanchez, Lille midfielder, is also on Arsenal's radar, which has strong competition for Liverpool here. After Roma signed Rui Patricio, they will be able to focus on Xhaka in what is a game of strategies. There is an agreement for the player, but Roma are waiting for Arsenal to buy a midfielder. Ruben Neves is the favorite. And this is coming from Nicolo Shira, says talks in progress for Ruben Neves to Arsenal from Wolves. Gunners have offered 5 years contract to the Portuguese midfielder. So it feels like this is it, right? It feels like this is it. It makes sense now, because when you look at somebody like Locatelli, who I do feel like we were genuinely interested in and thought, like, let's just take a punt on him if there's an opportunity. Ultimately, we got friend zoned, which is perfectly fine. But when you look at somebody like Locatelli, I don't really see Bissouma as the next natural option because they're nothing alike. They're really not, like, at all. Whereas Locatelli and Ruben Neves are quite similar, not in how good they are, but in terms of they're quite well-rounded. Ruben Neves is pretty good at everything. Locatelli is very good at everything. And they're kind of like those midfielders that can sit in a pivot. They can play in a midfield three. They're great passers. Their passing range is what really makes them special. But they're not really ball progressors or necessarily, that hard tackling type of CDM. They're more the well-rounded type. So when you go from Locatelli, who's your number one, or I'm just going to put a punt, and try to make that happen. And then you look for the next level down or the next guy in line, your number two option, Ruben Neves really makes sense. He really, really does. So I think he's the guy. And that really kind of makes more sense. Like it makes sense why Basuma is not our number one target, number two target, or even somebody that we look like we're generally going for, is because he doesn't profile similarly to either of them. And for me, even if it's not the profile that I want to have some comfort in the club finding like for like options in a position, because that makes me feel like they're concrete and confident in what they're going for. If you go for Locatelli and then you go for Basuma, I don't think you're concrete in what you're trying to do because they're nothing alike, right? So that's kind of similar to Odegaard and Maddison. Those profiles make sense because they're quite similar. They're different, but they can do the same things for you. Whereas if we're talking about the difference between Buendia and Odegaard, they're nothing alike. So that confuses me and makes me think that the club is not clear on their objectives. So am I confident in what they're trying to do? And do I think they're confident in the way that they're trying to build the team? Yes. Do I like the profile? He's not my favorite, but we'll talk about we'll talk about what he can bring to the team, right? What I like and what I don't like. So let me just bring up I had all this up, but then it's gone and I don't know why. So just give me a second. Okay. Let's share the screen. Okay. So with Ruben Neves, basically, how do I explain? He's good at everything, but he doesn't have an elite skill, right? So if you look at somebody like Basuma, maybe his elite skill is being quite sprinty and good in the tackle and good defensively. Ruben Neves has good defensive numbers, not because he's a good defender, but because I think he's smart and he knows where to be, versus somebody who's just a really good defender, if that makes sense. So he's pretty well-rounded. When you look at his numbers, if you just look generally, he's very well-rounded, but not necessarily elite in any particular category. Blocking, he has very good numbers, but some Wolves fans have just said that his defensive capabilities have gotten his defensive development has been quite good over the last year at Wolves, right? Clearances are good, but not elite. Interceptions, good, not elite. Tackles, pretty good, not elite, right? But he can do it. He can do those things, right? Progressive passes, 69%. He's in the 69th percentile. And he attempts about 4.75 progressive passes per game, which is good. We're looking for somebody that can at least get us up the pitch. We'll kick the ball forward. He's definitely not a side-to-side type of guy. You'll see him hit some really direct passes on the ground and in the air, which is something that we're looking for. Passes attempted, he's in the 79th percentile, which is good. Shot creating actions in the 67th percentile. He has about 2.2 shot creating actions per 90, which is pretty good. So what I see from him is I think he's still the pass before the pass, which is what Xhaka was as well, but I think he's a little bit more direct. He's a little bit more involved in terms of Wolves offense, even though he's quite good defensively, which goes back to what I was saying about him being well-rounded. Now, here's the part where I think he needs to improve. his shot total is really high. He takes about 2 shots per 90, and they're not good shots. So those bangers that you guys think he's going to be scoring, like, they're very few and far between, right? Expected assists 0.8 per game per 90, which is decent. So again, he's a well-rounded player that is quite good at everything. I think he has some room to grow. He's 24 years old, so he's not quite at his prime yet. And I think his growth probably has been stunted by being in a Nuno system that's quite conservative. I think he has a little bit more to give offensively. But again, what I think the club was looking for is somebody that can do a lot of, he's more mobile than Xhaka. He can do everything, but he's not elite at anything really. So that's what they're looking for. Do I think he's an upgrade on Granit Xhaka? Yes, I do. Is he the standout, like Locatelli type of Renato Sanchez, going to get you off your seat type of guy? No, but that's not what we need. What I also like about him is that he's a leader, and it's a soft factor, which is not something I'd pay more for, but if he has it, it's a plus, right? So he's a leader, he stands up, he's involved in the game, he doesn't ghost through games. And yeah, so if this is the guy, then it is what it is, right? So we can't really get too upset, even though I know people will, because we really want Basuma, right? And that's pretty much my only ding on him, is that he's just not Basuma. I kind of preferred somebody that was a little bit more, that could change, kind of evolve the midfield. Ruben Neves doesn't do that. He upgrades what we already have. It's a better version of the Xhaka partnership, which was quite successful, but had its limitations. Ruben Neves, because he's a little bit more mobile, eliminates those limitations, but still, it's just not the midfield that I really wanted, right? So let me do this now and just talk about the deal a little bit, what it's going to take for us to get him through the door. So as I kind of read that quote, it's Wolves are not going to give him away for free, right? And supposedly we were willing to offer about 40 million plus for Locatelli. Ruben Neves is supposedly worth almost 50 million. Well, that's in dollars. So let's say 45. You guys can do the math for me, but I think we'll end up paying more than 40 for him, maybe a little bit more than 40. That's pretty steep for him, but that's what it's going to cost to get somebody's starting midfielder out of that club and into yours, and would be a starting midfielder for us as well. Portuguese international, quite young as well, pre-prime, and has some time left on his deal. Is contracted until 2024. So that's why the price is quite high. So, but I think we've budgeted that amount for a midfielder. So that's what it's pretty much going to take. So let's see what you guys are kind of saying. So yeah, it's not the most exciting, I have to be honest, because I kind of had my heart set on Basuma. But in terms of an upgrade on Xhaka, I think he is that. I like that the club is confident in a profile. That means that they're confident in a way of playing. I like that he's well-rounded. He does everything quite good, but let's see if he can turn it up a notch and if he can handle the pressure at Arsenal and be, kind of a key figure in that midfield. That's yet to be determined, right? So I want to get you guys involved. Thumbs up or thumbs down on Ruben Neves. What do you guys have? And if you guys want to give me a why, go ahead. Oh, that's what I was going to show you guys. I'm sorry. I had one more thing to show you. So this is from Adam Vogue. If you guys haven't seen on Twitter, he does these really cool like charts, kind of like this one, where he'll have them like where you won't be able to know who the midfielders are. So and you have to guess based on the qualities and kind of the numbers and all that kind of stuff. So Ruben Neves on here, he's in the yellow, right? So he's the yellow quantities here. 94 percentile in blocks. Like when you look at it, the shape, what it gives you is he's quite good at everything. When you look at the yellow here, he's quite steady in everything that he does, from progressive pass distances, key passes, tackles won, successful presses, blocks. And then where he kind of falters a little bit is progressive carrying distance, expected non-penalty goals and assists, and shots on target. So those are the things that the other two midfielders would have to make up if he's not there. But he's covering quite well some key aspects of a midfield that we would need, which I think makes him a good balancer. If you have a box-to-box midfielder like Thomas Partey, and then you were to add somebody else in like an Awa or a James Maddison, who will ultimately be a little bit more better in this progressive carrying distances and expected non-penalty goals and assists. So they'll make up that. And that's where midfield balance becomes really interesting, is when you start looking at how the three midfielders that you're going to have, how are they going to work together in order to cover all of your bases? And when you look at this, Awa is in the purple. So he covers that progressive carrying distances, non-penalty goals and assists, shots on target, key passes. He's very good in that respect. Then you have Thomas, who's also a good progressive carrier. He's not as good in the shots. We know that he's not really going to get you your goals and assists, but he chips in with defense. So this midfield would have good balance, which is really what you want. Just because you have three really good midfielders, let's say they're all world class, if they're kind of all doing the same things, or they don't cover certain aspects of the midfield, then you leave yourself wanting a little bit, right? So I think Neves can be a good part, a good balancer in a midfield that has different qualities, but you have to have those other elements. So Ruben Neves plus Partey makes sense as long as you add that third element. And I think Awa would be a nice balancer to that. Like if you look at the chart here, you can see that they balance each other out really, really good. This would be a really nice midfield to have, but I don't think we're going for Awa. I think based on the reports, we're going for Maddison. So be interested, and I'll ask Adam if he can do it, if he could just take Awa out and put Maddison in, and we can see how they overlap and if they cover all their bases and make it a nice balanced midfield three, right? So that's what I wanted to show you guys on that. So yeah, you guys let me know. Thumbs up or thumbs down on Ruben Neves. Let me know. Get in the chat box. Let me know. If you guys can't put the thumbs up and thumbs down emoji, don't worry about it. Just tell me thumbs up or thumbs down. I've been like talking for a while. I'm like, whew. Okay. Let's see. All right, you guys, let me know. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Bjorn says, jack of all trades, master of none is not what Arsenal need right now. Yo-Yo says, Neves must be quick in thought like Cesc, or quick with his feet like Santi. If not, this will be painful. He is a smart player. He's definitely not somebody who's going to pick up the ball and dribble all the way to the other goal. But what he does do quite well is when he's under pressure, he can use his technical skill to get out of kind of dodgy moments. So he's definitely not somebody that strikes me as, if he's dawdling on the ball, he'll get found out. He's really not that guy. He is quite smart. S says, we've got Partey that can sit deep in a role like Basuma does at Brighton, because he's done it at Atletico. Kel Cole says, identifying a midfielder should be an easy job for Arteta and Edu, both midfielders. Arsenal man on fire. Don Giovanni says, complete players is exactly what we need. And I think that's a really good point. I personally, although I love Basuma, I think we need to have more well-rounded players that aren't necessarily specialists, because when you have specialists, then they need hand-holding in certain places, like if that makes sense. So Xhaka was very elite in one thing, or not elite. He was very good in the past, but he was quite weak in other areas. And unless you had certain people around him, he was unprotected. So when you have complete players, you don't really have that as much. And Neves is a very complete player. Basuma is also very complete, but we haven't seen that completeness in the Premier League because of the way Brighton plays. Chasman says the good thing is he's Premier League proven. S says Neves is a Xhaka number 2. We're going to go from 8th to 6th. Bjorn says Basuma is a much better player than Neves, and he would fit into Arsenal much better as well. It just depends on the midfield balance. I think if you had Basuma and Thomas in a pivot plus Maddison in the 10, that's good. But I can also see where Neves plus Partey plus somebody else would also be a nice midfield. I think both could be good, if that makes sense. John Doe says Maddison then Awa. Okay. Mike W says thumbs up. Jordan Strong says, I used to love Neves. I think this last year his stock fell when Wolves were poor. That happens with a lot of players. If when their team is bad, they're not as good, So some Wolves fans have said like that they think Nuno's tactics and what he did last season stunted his growth. Again, he's only 24 years old, so I think there's some room for him to grow. S says Xhaka number 2. Kel says thumbs up. Don Giovanni says if you took away Xhaka's glaring deficiencies and kept his strengths, he'd be a top player. Kel Cole says I don't see Aouar as a 10. He's not a 10, but again, he's an 8. But if you played in that, so if you played with Maddison, you could play with a midfield 3 because he has a little bit more flexibility. But Aouar would play as the left-sided 8 in a 3. Ruben Neves would play in the middle or on the right, or like Thomas or him could actually play either position. But that balance is actually really good if you look at it. So no, Aouar is not a 10, but also we like to switch. We actually switch formations throughout the game. We don't actually play just one formation. So even though Aouar can't play the 10, we still have Smith Rowe. And so it wouldn't really deter me from getting Aouar just because he's an 8, because I know we can play in a 4-3-3. Bjorn says Neves is an 8 forced to play as a 6 at Wolves. Ify says Basuma is really good, but our fans are overhyping him. S says Renato Sanchez is a Portuguese midfielder we need, not Neves. I actually disagree because Renato Sanchez is the 3rd midfielder in a 3. He's not a pivot player. And what we're looking for is a replacement for our pivot player. The only way that this works if you bring in Renato Sanchez is if you bring in another midfielder. And that means you don't bring another creative midfielder in. I don't think that that's the right way to go about it. I think you need to bring in somebody that can help Smith Rowe, meaning that's another creative player that can play behind the striker. Renato Sanchez is not that. And then you pick somebody that can play in a pivot that can also play in a midfield 3. He can't play in a pivot. He's not a pivot player. He's a nice player that's a nice midfield 3 type of guy. And I also have major questions about his injury record, lots of soft tissue issues. And yes, he looks good on compilations. Yes, he would make everybody excited because he's good on the ball and he's kind of like a popular type of guy right now. But in order to bring in Renato Sanchez, you'd still have to bring in another midfielder, another Xhaka type replacement guy. And I don't think that's the best use of our resources when you could bring in Ruben Neves and either bring in Aouar or Maddison. I think that makes you more complete. It solves the Smith Rowe issue with not making Smith Rowe have to play so many games. So Renato Sanchez is the guy that you get after you get Ruben Neves. Like, he's not the guy that you get now because, again, he can't even play in the pivot. And right now, we play a lot in a 4-2-3-1. So he's not defensively sound enough to do it. And again, I figure first game against Brentford, soft tissue injury, and bam, that's 60, 70 million right down the drain. Chasman says Partey and Basuma play the same style of football. I disagree a little bit. Sorry, you guys. I know you guys can probably hear that thing in the background. AK Gunner says, why compare Neves, a Regista, with Aouar and Partey? All 3 midfielders play different positions and roles. Why it's not a comparison, AK. It's showing how they overlap to create a midfield that's quite balanced. We're not really comparing them per se, but that's how your midfield would look. You would be able to, you would have somebody that's a really good progressive dribbler. You'd actually have 2 of those. You have Thomas and Neves that are both progressive passers, but you have your expected goals and assists coming from Aouar because Ruben Neves and Thomas are not really those players. So the point of it was not to compare the three. It was to show how the three of them could come together and become a really balanced midfield, and you're not really missing out on anything. So I think that's more what it was than a comparison per se. But what you could see is you'd see who's good at what and who's not good at the other thing. You know what I mean? Tawanda said he's absolutely perfect player profile for Arsenal. He'll prove a lot of people wrong if he signs alongside with Partey. Deadly. Ruben says, I prefer Awa. He's more talented than Sanchez and Neves. Cal Cole says, Jess, would you mind a workhorse midfield like Liverpool? I think we're trying to copy City too much. Look, I actually prefer the Liverpool midfield. We've spoken about it on this show. That's what I prefer. But that's not the way that we're going. That's clear. I wanted to see the midfielder that was going to replace Xhaka would give me a clear indication of what we're trying to do. I don't really think it's a Liverpool or a Man City midfield. I still think it's different. But yes, I would prefer more of the workhorse. I would. But again, if this works, I won't complain. I think it's quite balanced if you bring in somebody else that could make up for their lack of progressive passing, or not progressive passing, but their ability to score goals and contribute to the offense. I think that's fine. Cal Cole says, I think Matthias Pereira is a good shout. People are talking about him, but I don't see us linked with him at all. If you guys have seen him linked, let me know, but I really wouldn't. I don't really see him linked. Maybe he's like a third or fourth option, but I haven't really seen a link to him. Don Giovanni says, no thanks. I'd rather watch actual footballers than players like Henderson and Wijnaldum. Okay. John Doe says, I'm ecstatic that we signed Lokonga as a depth option. As a Belgian Gunner, this is a dream. Oh yeah, I'm excited about him as well. Maverick says Sanchez's injury issue really rules him out for me. I agree. Neves could really come into this game more at Arsenal with Arteta, and I'd love to see Maddison at Arsenal. Yep. Okay, you guys. I love that. I got your guys' ideas of, it was still mixed, which I expected because, like, let's be real, we never agree on anything as Arsenal fans, but we don't have to. And ultimately, I think if it works out, then we won't complain, but it has to work out, right? Because he's going to cost quite a bit of money. And it'll be interesting to see if they bring in Maddison, as another midfielder. So before we get to the Maddison news, I want to do that right at the end. Let's talk about right back. Fabrizio Romano did say that Arsenal will be looking for a right back, which kind of went against what I was saying. Like, that's what I'm saying again, you guys. I'm just a fan channel, and although I try to use as much of my knowledge as possible to give you good viewpoints, I could be totally wrong, but I didn't think we'd be actually in a position to get one, because when you have Maitland-Niles on the books and Cedric and Chambers, I'm thinking like, gosh, this is a lot of right backs, and I just didn't see where we were going to get it from. Like, I just didn't see it, but Fabrizio Romano, who can be hit or miss, says that we're still interested in bringing in a right back. So I had you guys do a poll. Let me pull it up real quick to see what you guys said. It's so funny because you guys are like going in on me, which I love. So funny. Okay. Okay, so here's our poll here. And I said Arsenal are going in for a right back this summer. Who would you guys like to see replace Hector Bellerin? I put in Max Aarons because we've been linked with him, and he's still available unless Everton go and get him. Takiro Tomiyasu, we've been mildly linked with him. I think, quite frankly, I don't really know a lot about him because I don't watch a lot of Serie A, but at the same time, I think he's going to Tottenham. I think they're using us to just kind of speed Tottenham up. Tyler Adams, who people were saying like he's not a right back. I know that, but when we were linked with him, I think it was for the right back position to play inverted, because he'd be a really good inverted right back, in my opinion. And then there was others in the comments. Lamb T was mentioned, Riddle Baku. He would be my choice. Riddle Baku would from Wolfsburg, but we haven't been linked, and it just is too right. we can't do too many good things, right? So I would just think one of these has to be a mistake. So I would think maybe we'll bottle the right back. It just would be too right to get rid of Baku, right? We've been linked with Mulder, but I don't know anything about him, you guys. To be honest, I haven't had a chance to really look into him. Zeki Selik is who Adam Vogue was saying that he wanted. I don't know. I say it was like Malay or Malay, or basically the guy from Denmark. So there was quite a bunch of different options. So I wanted to get what you guys were thinking. So who would you like to replace Hector Bellerin? Let's just talk about it, because we haven't really been reliably linked with too many people, right? But the trend this window has really been, the link usually comes out when the deal is freaking done almost, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was like, here's our right back, So the key to this really, though, is Hector Bellerin. He's the number one target for Inter to replace Hakimi, and they want a loan with an option, but we want a permanent transfer. So I think we'll meet somewhere in the middle, and we'll end up with some sort of obligation. Hopefully we need an obligation to buy for Hector Bellerin. We haven't really been linked with a right back concretely, but most of the players we're in for kind of start off under the radar. And I think the choice will be a little bit clearer once Bellerin is close to being sold. So who are you guys thinking? Honestly, it's so up in the air. Of course, you guys know I would love Tyler Adams, because I do feel like he could also play midfield. And he's a really good player with good upside. He does have an injury record too. So I'm kind of like contradicting myself a little bit. But I think what it would take to bring him in would be considerably less than what it would be for Renato Sanchez. So there's also that. But then I do have questions about bringing somebody in whose natural position is something else and then playing him in a different position. So there's that. Max Aarons is somebody that we've been interested in the past, but I haven't seen anything really come up lately. So what do you guys think about right back? Give me options. Let's see. Max Aarons. Riddle Baku. Let's see. Ruben says, from all the right backs we've been linked to, Mert Mulder looks different, or looks decent. You guys, maybe I'll do like a scouting report on him. I don't know much about him. Is he from Sassuolo as well, where Locatelli is from? Let's do a little look-see-loo. Let's look now. He would fit the bill in terms of age profile, which is important. So let's look at Mert Mulder real quick. You guys can keep giving me your options or who you would like to see. You guys can put it in the chat box. I'll get to him in just a sec. Okay. I mean, his numbers aren't amazing, but dribbles completed is quite high in the 84th percentile, which means he's quite dribbly. He likes to progress the ball. He attempts, 4.87 progressive carries, but they're not that successful. Touches in the attacking penalty is 85th percentile. So he's an attacking fullback. We know that for sure. And progressive passes is quite good. His tackles and stuff are low, so he's not really a great defender, but he's probably one of those that's not really used as a defender. So I'm not really sure. I can't really gauge it from this. Obviously, we need a little bit of eye test to go with this, but just from a general perspective, I can see that he's an attacking fullback, and he fits the mold in terms of an age profile, but I would have to look a little bit more into that. If you guys have some more insight on him, let me know. Majraoui, Melee. You guys, I know I'm botching that. John Doe says, my Turkish friend doesn't feel that Mulder is Arsenal quality yet. Bjorn says, I think Arsenal should get Max if possible. DB says, Barcelona need to sell player Serginho Dest. Would love Dest. Kel says, AMN screws up, man. That should be his position. Too busy moaning. Can't force him to do something that he doesn't want to do. I do think he'd be perfect for that. But again, he sees himself as a midfielder. It is what it is at this point, S says, I would pay as much as 55 million for Dest. Don Giovanni says, amen, with Cedric as backup from current options. So not Chambers, you would get rid of Chambers. Jowl says, Tomiyasu looks decent, to be honest. When I was looking at him, he fits the profile from the perspective that a right back tends to play more like a right-sided center back. They don't overlap. So I think he looked good, but that was at Bologna in Italy. So I'm not sure. Like, I'm very questionable about this guy because I've just barely seen him. Yeah, like it's a weird one, right? Because we're not sure because we're not really linked with anybody. So we're just kind of grasping at straws. We don't really know if like the right back will be similar to Chambers because is that what they want? Or is it because that's what we had? You know what I mean? Or do they want something different? So yeah, Emerson Royale, I don't think he's going to leave Barcelona, to be honest, but I thought he would be a good option. Yeah. Cancun says, would RB Leipzig let Adams go? My gut says Jesse Marsch would keep him. It just depends, it depends. I don't think RB Leipzig doesn't strike me as a team that keeps players very long. Like, they'll move them on if a good opportunity comes to sell. Jesse Marsch is somebody that I feel like would want to keep Tyler, but Tyler Adams is also a huge Arsenal fan. And would he turn down the opportunity to come to a big club? I'm not sure he would turn it down. Yeah, so we'll just see, but also I have questions about bringing him in as a right back when he's clearly a central midfielder, but he would be a good right back too, so Nordi Mukele or Max Aarons. Yeah, so this is so up in the air, but we do know that we will be in for a right back, so that leaves something else for the fan base to get have anxiety over. So we'll see what happens with that. So there's about 86 of you guys still watching. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Do you guys want to talk about Maddison now? Do you guys want to talk about him? Okay, so let's see. I was on the other show when the news kind of broke a little bit. And so now people are trying to say that we're definitely going to sell Smith Rowe. No, we're not. We already know that Smith Rowe is going to sign a new deal. Like, it's really close. Him and Keto Taylor-Hart and Akwanko are all signing new deals. So Smith Rowe and Maddison are not connected in any way, shape, or form. And it would make absolutely no sense to sell Smith Rowe to Aston Villa and buy James Maddison. You keep both and you let them work off of each other. Smith Rowe can play off of the left and then sometimes play in the 10 role when Maddison is not fit or can't play or whatever. But I think a good club keeps Smith Rowe, and he's a big part of the project going forward. So you will hear in the next couple of days that this definitely means that Smith Rowe is going, because you don't bring in Maddison and then, and keep Smith Rowe. We will keep Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe is going to sign a new deal. I'm confident of that, but we're going to bring in Maddison. We were always going to bring in another creative midfielder. It was going to be very similar. It's so funny because if you bring in Maddison, then that means we're going to sell Smith Rowe. But if we had brought in Odegaard, then nobody would have blinked an eye. It is not correlated, right? Whatsoever. I get so tired of people making these silly conclusions, to be honest. All right, so the bell has spoken. You guys, I love the bell. I love this kind of stuff. You guys know I love transfer season. I'm all in it. I'm in it. So the bell is saying that James Maddison camp expects a move and an attempt from Arsenal in the coming weeks to sign the player. The club, though it's lobbying and back channels, offered James Maddison a 4+1 contract, a salary near double what he earns at Leicester City, and the opportunity to wear the iconic number 10 shirt. I already said that if he came, he would get the number 10. Maybe Smith Rowe gets the number 8 or something else. We'll see. Arsenal's seriousness was evident as the spies informed the players' camp that the club saw it as a primary target this window. We already knew that Maddison was on the top of our list. The club's vigor was well received by the camp of the player alike, and he understands that Maddison openly discussed with his inner circle the idea of leaving Leicester and joining Arsenal. Yeah, so that's essentially all we know for now, so let's see if some more concrete talk or some more concrete evidence comes up in the next couple of days. But I was never under the illusion that Maddison was so out of our range. I've given multiple reasons why he would want to come to Arsenal. From an outsider's perspective, from a rival's perspective, all they can see is Leicester came above you 2 years in a row, so that's a total step down. But in reality, Leicester hasn't really achieved much more than we've achieved in the last couple of years. They haven't gotten top four. They haven't won the Europa League. They won an FA Cup, and so have we. And if you're not the number one choice for your manager and you want to get into the English national team and another club is willing to offer you higher wages, the number 10 shirt and a sure starting position, you'd probably take that because you're watching England possibly win a Euros without you being involved. So there are multiple factors other than the fact that Leicester finished above us that would make Maddison choose Arsenal. We're still a bigger club. We just are. Like, it just is. It's a freaking fact. Like, Leicester has done nothing in the last couple of years that would make them a bigger club. So I know the next couple of days will definitely be Arsenal can't get him. It's a step down. Why would he come? All this kind of stuff. But when the rumors first came out, it made sense to me because he's a natural fit for the role, a better fit, in my opinion, than Aouar. But maybe it's if we don't get Maddison, we'll go after Aouar. But we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. But we've already spoken about him at length on this channel. Me and George did a show where we talked about how Ben White, Lakanga, and Maddison would fit into this team. So you guys can go back and watch that. It was a very good video. We really enjoyed making it. So if you want to see kind of like what our thoughts are on formations and how they would fit in, I would say watch that. But what are you guys thinking about the Maddison thing? Are you guys disappointed? It will cost somewhere around 60 million. So there's definitely that. But for me, it's the right type of player to bring in. From multiple perspectives. From a profile perspective, it makes sense. From a letting people know that we're serious, it makes sense. Our homegrown numbers, it makes sense. Age profile, it makes sense. There's a lot of different, reasonings why I think it makes sense. So what do you guys think? Newman says Arsenal's wage bill hardly moved despite getting rid of Ozil, Mustafi, and Socrates. No, that's not true. As Don Giovanni said, we freed up like 750 grand in wages, and it's not just them. I don't think. I think there's more players that will leave as well. Jacques is on quite a bit of wages. So, yes, some of the players that will come in will get the wages of the players that are leaving in front of them, whatever. But 750 grand in wages is quite significant. And I don't believe that will be the only wages that are released. I think we'll get rid of at least one of Lacazette or Willian by the end of the window. Let's see. Ruben says, I could see us playing without a striker. Maddison can score kind of like Liverpool. That would be risky, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's not like Arteta didn't try to play Emile Smith-Rowe as a false nine in a semifinal. Now, is it? So Sean says this could be a deadline deal, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't think it's anywhere near getting done. I really don't, if it were to get done. Ivy says poor ESR won't get the number 10 shirt. I mean, we don't even know if that's what he wants, so I wouldn't say poor, ESR just yet. Mike Dubia says, am I nervous about tonight's Copa? Absolutely, 100%. I am very nervous. Mike Dubia says, takes pressure off of ESR. It does. And I think that that's important. I know that we want ESR to be an Arsenal legend, and we're projecting that he's a player that he's not yet. He's a young player that just broke into the team a couple of months ago and had about 2 or 3 good months of playing, mixed in with some injury issues. So I think a club like Arsenal should have a starting number 10 and somebody coming up through the ranks like a Smith-Rowe. And the best thing is that he can play in multiple positions. So Smith-Rowe can play in multiple positions. So I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing in somebody who would take the pressure off I know that some Arsenal fans are worried, but there's nothing to be worried about. And Smith Rowe should not expect to be like starting at Arsenal Football Club at 20 years old. Like, he should still need to work for his spot, you guys. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Ivy says, got rid of Ozo, Mustafi, Socrates, and freed up wage in the wage bill. That's smart, in my opinion. Yeah. So what do you guys think about the Maddison thing? Just let me know real quick. We'll probably talk about this again tomorrow, because there'll probably be more information. But yeah. Cancun says, Jess, no chance of bringing Marty back. No, I don't think so. I think that's pretty much done. He already said his goodbyes, pretty publicly. And so I think that's pretty much a done deal at this point. So that's probably the reason why we're going after Maddison. Yo-Yo says Maddison might be tasked to play false nine as ESR, Laka, Willian were at times. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Just don't do it in a semifinal. Do it against somebody in like the Carabao Cup or something. Like, don't do it in like the most important game of our season. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Good stream, you guys. I know it was quite long, but because I haven't been here in a couple of days, I wanted to make sure that I kind of, covered all my bases per se. But we'll be back to daily streams now that I'm back in town and stuff. So yeah, I'm going for Brazil in the Copa. You guys, I'm a huge Brazil fan, and I'm shitting it right now. I'm very nervous for them, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So, yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Just keep a lookout on Twitter. I'll let you guys know what time and stuff. I'm just trying to, maneuver around the other games and all that kind of stuff. It's the final for the Euros tomorrow. So we'll see what's going on. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for being here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, guys. Thank you.